to our dad and our family. And it's truly been overwhelming. At this time, I'd like to say a prayer over the food. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this beautiful day. We thank you for the opportunity to come together and fellowship with each other. We thank you for the freedom to live in this great country in the state of Texas. We ask you just defend and lay a hand of protection over those who defend those freedoms daily. We ask you just bless this food, let it be near to our bodies. And finally, we ask that you just help us glorify your name and always sing to you, Lord. Ask things in your name. Amen. Amen. And at this time, I have the pleasure of introducing a man who needs no introduction. He's been your state senator for the last 4 years and your state representative 8 years before that. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to Senator Drew Springer.
Hey, what a great-looking crowd. And I know it's definitely not for me, but these two gentlemen over here. But I got to tell you, you know, everybody knows I'm hanging it up after the end of this term, but it's the folks in this area right now, in this courtyard, that has made the 12 years that I've been in the Texas legislature special and rewarding. So thank y'all very much. And 4 years ago, when I decided to run for the Senate, we had a host of guys run for that. But I can tell you honestly, could not have had a better person that has worked than David Spiller. David has done a phenomenal job. And he's been a partner of me working on the 4 counties that we jointly represent. And if I ever have any questions or issues or need help over in the House, you know, David jumped right in there and was ready to go. His only disappointment was this session. He had to move out of my big office that he inherited when he came in to a smaller office. But other than that, that's about the only downside I think he had. He's done a phenomenal job. And I want to thank each and every one of y'all for coming out and supporting David, because we absolutely have to have him back in the Texas House next session. And one of the other gentlemen I've had just the absolute phenomenal experience working with is Governor Greg Abbott, and I could not have had a better partner. Whether we were working on economic development, whether we were working on Second Amendment rights or pro-life and all the different things that, you know, we were able to accomplish, he has been a phenomenal partner for rural Texas, and has never forgot where he came from. Born in Wichita Falls, just up the road. So, you know, Governor's been phenomenal. And so now let me give you his official bio, as we say. You know, and the other thing that changed after 12 years, you finally realized you had to go to glasses. So, before I get any further, okay, here we go. Governor Abbott has a bold vision for a bigger and better Texas. He will continue to create more jobs, bring education freedom to every Texas family, and fight against Biden administration's efforts to keep Texas. Amen. Each year, Governor Abbott has been in office, Texas has been the best state for business in America. He's added more than 2 million jobs and grown the state's economy to the 8th largest in the world. Governor Abbott has also done more than any other governor in history to secure our border. He's created Operation Lone Star, began construction of the Texas border wall, and has bused more than 100,000 migrants to sanctuary cities like New York, LA, and Washington, D.C. Although my personal favorite is when they went to Kamala Harris's house. With key legislative victories, including making our schools safer, ensuring that businesses in our states continue to thrive, and delivering the largest property tax cut in Texas history, Governor Abbott has fought hard for Texans during last year's legislative session, but he isn't done yet. Under Governor Abbott's leadership, Texas will remain the land of freedom and opportunity, and it's that opportunity why I'm going to go try to make a living while we got such a great economy going on. Ladies and gentlemen, my friend and the governor of the greatest state in America, the great state of Texas, Greg Abbott.
Listen, I want to thank Drew Springer for his kind introduction, but I want to thank him even more for his legacy of service to the great state of Texas, to the people of this region. Give it up one more time for Drew Springer. So he told you what some of you know, but many of you did not know, and that is I'm actually from this neck of the woods, having been born in Wichita Falls. So the very first time I came here to Jacksboro was when I was a kid growing up in Wichita Falls. But I have not forgotten the region. The last time that I was here was just a couple of years ago when that tornado struck. And I've had the opportunity to see the community come together, heal together, and respond to that travesty. And I want to thank your county and local leadership, but most importantly, I want to thank everybody in this entire region for having in your heart the fighting spirit to know that your lives are not defined by your challenges, but instead by the way you respond to those challenges. So thank you for the way you responded. So a couple of references have been made to economic development. I was taking photos earlier, and I took a photograph with the local head of the economic development, the EDC, and I lost track of her. Where are you at? I still can't. Wait. She's back there working. Listen, first I want to thank her for what she does, but also everybody like that across the entire state of Texas. It could be, let's say, in Jacksboro. It could be in Wichita Falls. It could be in Dallas. It could be wherever. All together, Texas has the best team of economic development professionals in the entire world. Yeah. One of the things that we have won repeatedly every year that I've been governor, Texas has ranked #1 in America for economic development, which means that I've received the Governor's Cup now for 10 years in a row as your governor. Texas ranks #1 for the most new jobs, #1 for personal income growth, #1 for exports, #1 in too many categories to even cover. But I want to connect some dots to show you the magnitude of the size of the economy that we have here in Texas. Drew Springer mentioned that we have the 8th largest economy in the world. What does that mean? It means there's only 7 countries with an economy larger than Texas. Obviously, the United States, China, India, Japan, the UK, Germany, and France. We are growing so fast that by this time next year, we will surpass France and have the 7th largest economy in the entire world. What that does, it leads to greater prosperity for everybody in this state. Could be here in this town, could be in any town, but we want to deliver on that prosperity. I bring this up because it's one of the reasons why David Spiller has to be reelected. As good as things may be going in our economy, the fact of the matter is we are seeing, part in Texas, but more outside of the state of Texas, the disastrous consequences because of Bidenomics. The inflation that we've seen, the cost that people are paying for groceries, the cost of the price of the pump, it is driving people out of living in affordability. David Spiller will fight with me to protect the Texas economy from Bidenomics. And that brings me to why I'm here tonight in the first place. I wanted to come here to make clear to the people of this community as well as the entire district that I, as governor, I am backing, supporting, and endorsing David Spiller for re-election to the Texas House of Representatives. He's doing a fabulous job. He's earned re-election. And I aim to do everything I can to help him get back. Now, speaking of economics, one benefit of the fast growth economy that we have is it led to Texas being ranked number one in America for the largest budget surplus. There are some states that have a budget surplus. They will spend that money to grow government and to spend even more of your money. In Texas, we know whose money that is. This doesn't belong to the state. That money belongs to you. And that's exactly why David Spiller stepped up and made sure that we returned that money to you with the largest property tax cut in the history of the state of Texas this past session. But I know what David thinks about that and what many of you think about it. We call it a good start. There's more to do, more to cut property taxes. I can tell you going into this next session, it looks like we may have a $20 billion budget surplus. I want to work with David this next session to cut your property taxes even more. Now, there's some things going on in our country, some things involving the leftist agenda that are seeping into our state also. They may not be within a few mile radius of where we are right now. I don't know. But what I do know is this woke left agenda is going into our large cities. And we've had to step up and fight back against it. I'll give you just one example. Does anybody here know the name of Riley Gaines? Some of you do. Riley Gaines is an elite, accomplished, many trophy winning NCAA college women's swimmer at the University of Kentucky. And she began training since she was just a few years old. She trained day after day after day so that she would be able to compete against the best women in the world and beat them. And she did exactly that. Then, in one of her last meets, she had to not only compete against women, she swam in a race where one of her competitors was a man, claiming that he was a woman. And believe it or not, they actually tied, and they gave the trophy to him, not her. That's outrageous. And we wanted to make sure, and Riley actually came to Austin and worked with us to make sure that in Texas, we would never have to deal with that. And so I'm proud of David Spiller fighting for your values, getting a bill to my desk that I signed into law prohibiting men from competing against women in our sports, whether in college or high school. But I know that it seems like the most pressing issue that exists in the state now, if not the country. In fact, it is the most pressing issue in the country because it's the number one issue in all the polls. The number one issue in America clearly is the broken border caused by Joe Biden. And no one stepped up more in the Texas House of Representatives than your very own David Spiller to lend a hand to make sure Texas was able to respond more robustly than any state has in the history of the United States of America. Before I get into it, let's first never forget this, and that is it was just 4 years ago that we had the most secure border in 40 years. 4 years ago, there were fewer illegal crossings than going back 4 decades. That's because President Trump put into place 4 policies. End, catch, and release, Title 42, remain in Mexico, and build a border wall. That's all that it took. When Joe Biden took office, he came in and eliminated all of those policies and told the entire world that the border is open and you could come in and there would be no consequences. And as a result, we have record after record after record of new numbers of people coming across the border. The largest city by population in Texas is Houston. The population is a little bit more than 2.2 million people. It took more than 100 years to aggregate more than 2.2 million people. 2 years ago, there was more than that. There was 2.3 million people who came across the border who were apprehended who came across the border illegally. Then last year, more than that, there were more than 2.4 million people coming across the border illegally who were apprehended. My point is this: we got 2 Houstons coming across the border in just the past 2 years. And this is something that can not be assimilated in the United States of America. And who knows who these people are? What we do know for a fact is that there's all-time records being set for the number who were apprehended, who were on the terrorist watch list. That's an extraordinary danger that we face every single day. And because of that, we called on Joe Biden to step up and enforce the immigration laws of the United States of America. Know this: there are laws in the books as we speak here right now that require the executive branch, Joe Biden, Homeland Security, to deny illegal entry into our country. And if anybody comes in illegally, they must be detained. Joe Biden is not enforcing any of those. He's letting everybody in, and once they come in, he's letting them loose. They're given what's called a notice to appear, which we call a notice to disappear, because they're given a notice to appear in a court sometimes 10 years from now. They're granted mass parole across the United States. My point very simply is this: Joe Biden is not enforcing the laws that are already on the books that would stop illegal immigration. And because of the high number of people coming across the border, and because of the terrorists that we're facing, Texas as a state faces both imminent danger as well as an invasion. And that authorized me to invoke Article 1, Section 10 of the United States Constitution, saying we are going to defend ourselves as a sovereign state of the United States of America from the dangers caused by Joe Biden's open border policies. One thing that we've done is the wall. You remember the wall that was put up by Donald Trump. Texas is putting up that same wall with funding provided by people like David Spiller. We've been able to add more and more wall. When you count the parts of the wall already constructed and that which is under construction right now, Texas as a state is adding more border wall than Trump was able to put up as president of the United States. On top of that, you hear and see these razor wire barriers. These are Concertina military-grade razor wire that are put together in unique ways that deny illegal entry. There have been more than 100,000 people trying to get across the border and enter into the state of Texas illegally that were repelled and returned back to Mexico because of the National Guard building more than 100 miles of this Concertina razor wire barrier. These National Guard, thousands of them, are on the border, and while we are at wonderful gatherings like this here tonight, they are keeping watch of our border. Give it up for the men and women of the Texas National Guard who are serving on the border as we speak. They're serving alongside the Texas Department of Public Safety officers, and they work in tandem. The National Guard helps to build border barriers more than 100 miles, as well as guard them and repel people trying to get across. The DPS, they will make arrests of people who do make it across. So we got the razor wire barriers, we got the border wall. You remember those big orange buoys that were in the river? They were designed by the Border Patrol, and they were going to be used by President Trump. But President Trump lost the office, and Joe Biden said he didn't want to use them. So we talked to Border Patrol, and we found out that they really do work, just like the Border Patrol said they would. We put them in the river, and of course, Joe Biden files a lawsuit to put a stop to it. That lawsuit is working its way through the courts, but here's my point. As that lawsuit is working its way through the courts, as we gather right here tonight, those buoys remain in the Rio Grande, ensuring that we protect our border. And then there's this area on the border, Eagle Pass. Eagle Pass is an area where there was illegal immigration across the river into this park, which includes a golf course in Eagle Pass. You would see it on TV, and you would see thousands of people just in lines in this park. And it's outrageous that that park was being used by the Biden administration to advance his illegal scheme of allowing people to enter the country illegally. And that's when I decided, by God, we're going to put an end to this. And that's when I issued the order that we take control of that park. And that led to the Biden legal challenge, seeking for them to be able to cut the razor wire. He went to the United States Supreme Court begging the court to allow his Border Patrol officers to cut that wire so that they could facilitate illegal immigration into this country. When has a president ever done anything like that? It's outrageous. And we fought back. And the Supreme Court issued a ruling. However, they did not issue a ruling saying anything about razor wire, anything about the border. It was all just administrative. And they just sent the case back down to the Fifth Circuit Federal Court of Appeals. And so what the National Guard has been doing ever since then, they've been adding more razor wire, more barriers, more anti-climb walls to make sure that we redouble our efforts. And so this area, where just a few months ago and for a few years, there have been 2,000, 3,000, sometimes 4,000 people crossing there a day. 2 days ago, there were 4 people who crossed in that area. Those 4 people were arrested by the Texas Department of Public Safety. And what the Guard and DPS are doing as we speak right now is that they are expanding those areas where they're able to basically shut down any type of illegal immigration along the border. It's a massive undertaking, but it's an undertaking that could not be done if you did not have David Spiller working for you in the Capitol to get these laws and bills and funding to my desk. This is nothing a governor does alone. The governor does things like this as part of a team, and one of the leaders of that team is David Spiller, who was the lead author of a game-changing piece of legislation that he'll tell you more about. Just know, to summarize it, Texas has a law because of him that ensures the arrest by any law enforcement officer in the state of Texas of anybody coming across the border illegally, where they could be subject to spending time in jail for up to 20 years. We are sending a message: you will not cross illegally into the state of Texas because of David Spiller. And yes, unless and until Joe Biden does step up and enforce the laws already on the books to deny illegal entry and to detain those who come here illegally, I will continue to send those buses to sanctuary cities like New York, Chicago, Philadelphia, Denver, Los Angeles, across the entire country. But I know that our state is better because of your state representative. I'm proud to work with him, alongside him. I'm proud to see the product of what he is able to achieve in the Texas House. But we're at a time that's tough. We're at a time when we deal with political uncertainty. You may feel like, listen, things look good for him. You got a good crowd here. Everyone likes him, all that kind of stuff. Politics can be sometimes hard to figure out. We need to make sure there is no uncertainty in this race. We need to make sure that there's going on election night, you know what's going to happen. Only way that's going to happen is by everybody here staying engaged, staying involved. I know that you've done your part by showing up here tonight, but the election's not tonight. It's not tomorrow. It's in March. We have more than an entire month to be ready for this. This is a time not to be thankful that we have a secure border right now, or let's say more secure than before. Not a time to be happy with what's happened. This is a time to be engaged and energized and enthused to make sure that we will be sending back to Austin, Texas, David Spiller. He and I are working together. We are going to form a conservative bulwark to protect and safeguard the freedom and opportunity that's so unique in the state of Texas. Working together, David and I will ensure that we keep Texas the best state in the greatest country in the history of the world. Thank you all. God bless you all. And God bless to David Spiller.
Does that not make you proud to live in Texas, know that Governor Greg Abbott is our governor? Outstanding. Outstanding. Let me say, I just appreciate, I appreciate the turnout. You know, I've lived here in Jacksboro all my life, and usually if I want to schedule a meeting, you know, I'm doing good to get a handful of folks, and I'm overwhelmed with what we have today. And coincidentally, the governor's here. You know, and I appreciate him coming, but I'm just blown away. No, thank you very much, and I appreciate the crowd. Appreciate y'all. It is a privilege and honor to represent you as state representative in Austin for House District 68. I've got a few folks I need to thank. First of all, and some of these things we've touched on, but I think we need to make it double clear where we all stand. And I want to thank Governor Abbott for several things. First and foremost, he's already touched on it. 2 years ago, we had a devastating tornado here in Jacksboro, and the governor and his response team were here immediately in Jacksboro, Texas. We didn't have to have a tornado today. It's clear skies, but I want to tell you, he came immediately, and he put his people in place. And Jacksboro has rebuilt and done great. And again, on behalf of the people of Jacksboro, I want to thank you for you and your staff and your office's efforts to help us in every way, as well as the local folks. But we appreciate the help that you gave us. Thank you very much. We're going to talk about the border. We talked about the border, but it's important to talk a little bit more, and I want to put it in this perspective. I thank Governor Abbott for everything that he is doing for the border, and I'm going to tell you what he's done also to bring attention to this is busing folks and doing all the things, because the rest of the country would not have the knowledge that we have in Texas. We see it. You know, we're not on the border here. House District 68 is not on the border. Jack County is not on the border. But every county in Texas is a border county, and we know that. And my position is that it disproportionately affects us in rural counties worse, because we don't have the resources of large urban counties to deal with it, whether it be with health care, schools, whether it be with law enforcement, whether it be with anything. So it's so important to us. And I would say it is the most important issue in House District 68. It's the most important issue in Texas. But because of Governor Greg Abbott and what he's done and brought it to everyone's attention, was a little painful for those folks in New York and Chicago and D.C. Oh my gosh, we got 100 people that just showed up on a bus. Well, we're getting that every 30 minutes. So, because of that, the border is the number one issue in the country, and it would not be had it not been for Governor Greg Abbott. And because of places, even like this past week, we heard in New Hampshire. New Hampshire says the biggest issue is border security. I don't know if y'all look for New Hampshire, that's a long way off, but because of the governor of Texas, Governor Greg Abbott, it has brought it to the forefront, and that is helping push back against the Biden administration. So I certainly appreciate his efforts there. I also want to say I appreciate working with him and his staff and his office on SB 4. And SB 4 border security bill is the strongest border security bill in the history of our state and the history of our nation. Because for the first time, it allows Texans to protect Texas. We don't have to rely on the federal government to do it. Texans will protect Texas, and it allows for us to return people that get here illegally and prosecute and incarcerate them if they refuse to leave. And it's a landmark bill, and I just appreciate working with Governor Abbott on that and his staff. They were excellent, his general counsel, all his legal team. And some of you may not know this, and the governor doesn't really take credit for this. He doesn't know that I'm going to say this, but I know that he had a personal hand in writing and coming up with some of the terms of SB 4, and I appreciate that. He's He doesn't take credit for that. He's never taken credit for that, but I'm going to tell you, he deserves the credit. And I worked with his staff, and his hands and his fingerprints are all over that bill. And it was a privilege and an honor for me to carry it and pass it in the Texas House and get it passed and work with Senator Perry and work with Senator Springer and the other folks to get it across the finish line. And to the DOJ and the other folks that want to contest it and say they say it's unconstitutional, they want to fight it, I say, bring it. We're ready. We're ready to get on it. I also want to touch base on the economy and briefly, and we've already talked about, we have the greatest economy in our country and the 8th greatest economy, best economy in the world. And think about that for a minute. But that didn't happen by accident. That happened because you had conservative, Republican, pro-business leadership in Austin and a legislature that supports those ideals and principles, but also because you had a leader at the top that said, here's what we need done, and here's how we need to get it done. So again, Governor Greg Abbott deserves the credit, the full credit for Texas having the economy that we do today. Thank you. I just want to thank you for all that you do. We would not be here today and having this discussion were it not for the job that you've done for Texas and continue to do. Thank you for everything. I also want to thank Senator Drew Springer that's here today. I appreciate him serving as my state representative for 8 years, my senator for 4 years. He's done an outstanding job. He's been a great supporter, a great mentor of mine, a great friend of mine. I wouldn't be here today were it not for him. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So I appreciate it. And he's right about that office. When I came in that office, because he had been there quite a while, that sucker looked like an empty hay barn. And I walked in, I thought, I don't even know how we're gonna come up with enough stuff to fill this thing up. But with Ginger's help and some others, we got it done. In fact, she did such a good job. We had other people. Where's Jared Patterson? Jared Patterson and some other people going, dude, can your wife come decorate our offices? Can we, So, but she did a great job, and I just appreciate Drew. I want to say on behalf of everybody for Jack County and the other counties in House District 68 that he represented, and currently that he represents in Senate District 30, let's give him a round of applause for the great job that he's done. Thank you. I also want to take some time to thank my staff. We're not like the senatorial staff where we've got 50 of them lined around whatever. I've got two folks over here, Susanna Feather and Paige West, who are the best staffers in the Capitol, and most everybody at the Capitol knows that. Thank you. They do a great job. They help me. They advise me. They keep me out of trouble, which is a full-time job. They do a great thing. Anybody here that's called my office, you've dealt with them, and you know that they are Johnny on the spot when it comes to constituent concerns and issues. I think Mike Smith is back here somewhere. He's a frequent caller. We're used to that, but they do a great job, and I just appreciate them. When I won the first time and won on February 23rd in 2021, the very next day that we did, very next day we drove down to Austin. The first thing I had to do was hire a chief of staff, and Susanna was the first one that we interviewed, and it was like, okay, well, do we have to talk to the others, or do we still have to? We're ready. Can we vote right now? So she was godsend, and it was a God thing, and she's done great. And same thing with Paige. Paige, of course, is from Jacksboro. I made the mention. Yes, I mentioned to the Governor Abbott's team yesterday. I said, well, by the way, this is Paige, and she's from Jacksboro, and I jokingly said, well, she's from Jacksboro. We knew her. Ginger taught her. And I said, and I hired her anyway. She said, yes. And I knew Representative Spiller. And I agreed to work for him anyway. So, duly noted. Fair enough. But they do a great job, and they're like family to us, and we appreciate them. I want to thank all of y'all as friends and supporters. Y'all, I talk about everybody here, but we're not gonna have that amount of time. But I appreciate each and every one of you. Appreciate y'all coming out. It's a great day. It's a great weather. It's a great setting. I appreciate JR's and the great job that Ryan and those folks have done. But I could not do this without the support of y'all, and I just appreciate you so much. Not just for your support, but I appreciate you for your friendship and the relationship that we have, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. But lastly, the group I want to talk about and thank is my family. And first and foremost, of course, is Ginger. And I couldn't do this without her. I couldn't do life without her, but I couldn't do this without her. And she sacrifices a great deal. When you get me, you get both of us. You get a team. So I'll just say that she's with me everywhere I go. She drives. We drive. This district goes for 300 miles from one end to the other. I stopped at one time and I told this guy, "This is my wife Ginger, and she's my designated driver." And he looked at me and said, "Well, how much have you had to drink?" And I said, no. She drives, I work, I call. It's all legit. We're all okay. But no, she does a fantastic job and sacrifices. Our family sacrifices. She sacrifices, and she does a great job. I also want to thank Mason Reed, my sons here, and they are our sons, but they're also my law partners. I literally could not do this without them either. Somebody's got to make a living around here while I'm down in Austin. So I appreciate them very much. It's a tremendous sacrifice on their part. And sometimes, it's like, "Dad, what about this case?" Or are we, have you done this? Have you done that? We're on it. So, but I will say this, they do a great job with Spiller Title, Spiller and Spiller. That's an advertisement. And so, but they do an outstanding job, and I appreciate them, and they're my confidants, and we don't go a day without visiting and talking about things policy-wise that affect y'all as well. So I want to thank also Alex and Haley because they do a great job because they sacrifice for their families, sometimes because of what David is doing, and I appreciate that and respect that. Thank y'all very much. And I'm really thankful for my grandkids. I saw a couple of them here. A couple of them may have wandered off. They had some shirts the other day that said Davo Spiller. I thought, oh, that's cool. And it's kind of like when I first got this deal and was elected, people that have known me all my life said, "Okay, well, what are we supposed to call you? Do we have to call you Representative Spiller or something?" I said, "Well, why don't you call me David? That's what you've done for 60 years. Or you can call me Davo, like my grandkids and everybody else's grandkids." So I answer to pretty much anything, but Davo works, and Davo loves his grandkids. So thank y'all. Thank y'all for that. Let me say this. I won't keep us here too long, but I want to say, we've already mentioned the United States is the greatest country in the world. Texas is the greatest state in the United States. Texas makes the United States what it is and is the driving force behind the United States. We, in rural Texas, is the primary engine, economic engine and otherwise, for the entire state, which means the entire country. So aside from resources, the other thing that's important is the people, because I came back here to live, work, raise a family, do the things that we do, and I did it because of several things. One was the people, because places like Jacksboro and other towns that are in House District 68, it's about people and it's about our beliefs and the conservative principles, values and beliefs that we have, that we grew up with, that we understand. Christian values and things and conservative values, we understand that, and that's what we believe, and so that's why we're here, because we're here because of relationships. Life is built on relationships. My life is, I value my relationships with everyone here. We all have relationships with each other, and that's what makes a difference. That's why we visit, we talk, we care about each other, we help each other sometimes when no one even asks for help, and we do it. That's what we do, and that's the type of people that we have living in House District 68, which means it's such a blessing for me to represent good conservative folks that have those same principles, values, and beliefs. Those are the same principles, values, and beliefs that you fight for and live for. Those are the same things that I fight for and live for. So when you send me down to Austin, you know what I'm going to do, because you know what I stand for. Because when I get done, I still have to come back up here, and I've got to look each one of you in the eye and explain and what I did and why I did it, and explain everything that I do. And so, when I get done with this thing, I don't see myself down in Austin as a lobbyist. I'm going to be back up here seeing each one of y'all from day to day. So, not anytime soon. But what I'm saying is I need to be accountable, and I'm there for you, and I will continue to fight for you for the things that we care about. On that note, last week, because I carried the border bill, SB 4, the strongest border bill in the history of our state and our nation, I got called down to Kenny County. They had a landowners meeting. I was down there with Mike Banks, your border czar, in Bracketville on border security. They called landowners, packed room, over 200 people. And we were there with Congressman Chip Roy, Senator Pete Flores, Representative Ryan Ginn, and we answered questions and we listened to concerns. And the thing was set up so that landowners could talk about how they apply for the landowner compensation bill that we passed and what's covered, what's not, what the process is, but also for us to talk about our bills briefly and answer questions. But most of the issues there and the questions that people ask about were not that, because people, they are scared to death because their property is being invaded. They are being run over. Their property is being damaged. It's being destroyed. It's being stolen. All those things are happening. Their children cannot go outside and play for fear of what's going to happen. And the questions that they asked primarily were not about compensation. The questions that they asked were, when and how can we shoot these people that are coming just to be able to protect us and our families for our lives? And I couldn't help on the drive back, which Ginger was driving, on the drive back, thinking about that and thinking, that's what we have to make sure, that's the country that we're living. I mean, that's in the United States. That's the world we're living in. That's the country we're living in. These people, not only that, are in Texas. These are fellow Texans that have that problem. And my concern is, look, I have a duty and an obligation to make sure not only to help those folks, but also to make sure that doesn't happen here. We have to protect us. Texans have to protect Texas. I feel that is my personal duty and obligation. And so that's what I'm committed to. That's what I'll continue to be committed to. I'm running for re-election because we need the strongest voice we can in Austin. We need a strong rural conservative to represent us. That's what I'm doing. I would say that I'm the most conservative rural member of the Texas House. And also, since I've represented you, we've had with Jared and with Drew and some others, we've had the two most conservative sessions in the history of the state of Texas. And so, thank you. But to that, I would say, we're not done yet, and I'm not done yet. And I appreciate the opportunity that you give me and to represent you and to go and to fight for those things that you hold near and dear to your heart and that we feel is important. So, as your voice in the Texas House, I'll continue to advance and defend the conservative principles, values, and beliefs of the people of this district, and to provide the experienced, knowledgeable, and accessible representation that you deserve. So, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Reed and let him close. But before I do, let me just say, God bless the United States of America, the great state of Texas, and House District 68. Thank you very much. My son, Reed Speller. Thank you.
On behalf of my dad and my entire family, I really just want to say thank you to each and every one of you for being here, for loving on and supporting my dad and my family over the last 3 years and in the years ahead. So I really appreciate every single one of you. Appreciate you for being here, Governor Abbott and Senator Springer. Really appreciate the job that you guys have done. We'd also like to thank JR's for hosting us and allowing us to have this event here. And we also would like to thank our office staff. I know that was not intentional that he left off our employees at Spiller and Spiller and Spiller Title. So I have been asked to tell you to leave the flowers where they are. I think they have been donated to the local nursing home. And with that, y'all stick around as long as you want. Appreciate everyone being here. Y'all be safe going home. Thank you.